In the spring and autumn period of ancient China, wars were frequent, but they were nothing like the wars we imagine today. No vast infantry formations stretching for miles. No years-long campaigns with supply chains and trenches. Back then, many battles were decided fast, by a few chariots, a few commands, and a few moments of human judgment. Because the chariot was the center of the battlefield, a war chariot was not just transportation. It was a fighting platform, and often the commander's moving command post, and it carried 3 men. In most chariots, the charioteer stood in the middle, hands on the reins, feet braced, eyes fixed ahead. On the left stood the archer, responsible for ranged shots. On the right stood the close combat guard, the right man with a dagger axe or spear. The charioteer controlled speed, distance, turning, and retreat. On a shaking wooden frame pulled by horses, that control meant everything. If the chariot turned too late, it could be trapped. If it charged too early, it could be surrounded. If it hesitated, it could be pierced. In that world, the man holding the reins could decide whether the commander lived or died. And that is why this story, recorded in the Hua Yuan, still feels so unsettling. Around 590 BCE, the state of Song launched a campaign against its rival, the state of Zheng. The two states had a long history of tension and clashes. This was not some grand war of conquest. It was the kind of conflict that defined the era. Border pressure, retaliation, prestige, and rivalry. Song's senior commander, Hua Yuan, led the force toward Zheng territory, moving to attack near a place called Daji. The army marched. The weather was harsh. Men slept on hard ground. Armor was heavy. And before battle, morale mattered. So Hua Yuan did what commanders did. He ordered a sheep slaughtered to reward the troops. This wasn't just food. It was ritual, an act that said, "I see you, I feed you, we stand together." The meat was distributed among the soldiers. But one person, just one, was left out. Not a noble, not an officer, not even a frontline fighter. It was Hua Yuan's own charioteer, a man named Yang Zhen. Was it intentional? Probably not. Maybe Hua Yuan followed a strict definition of who counted as the troops. Maybe he was busy, distracted, thinking about the enemy and the formation. Maybe it was a simple oversight. But in a hierarchical society, an oversight could feel like a public statement. For Yang Zhen, it wasn't a small mistake. It was humiliation. To modern ears, this sounds ridiculous. An army ruined because a man didn't get a portion of meat. But on a spring and autumn battlefield, a charioteer was not an unskilled servant. He was a trained specialist. He understood horses. He understood terrain. He understood timing. And he was physically positioned at the most critical point of the commander's survival, the reins. If the charioteer was loyal, the commander had a chance. If the charioteer was reckless, the commander could be lost in seconds. Yang Zhen did not protest. He did not argue in camp. He did not demand his share. He simply absorbed the insult. And resentment has a dangerous quality. It stays quiet until it finds the perfect moment. The next day, Song and Zheng armies prepared for battle. Chariots were readied. Horses stamped and snorted. The air filled with dust. Men tightened straps, checked weapons, and watched the enemy line. Hua Yuan climbed onto his chariot, and the right-hand guard took his place on the right side of the chariot. The battlefield ahead was open ground, ideal for chariot fighting. Chariots needed space to maneuver. They needed speed. They needed clear direction. Hua Yuan issued the first command. "Drive forward." But before the wheels could turn, Yang Zhen spoke, a sentence preserved in the ancient record. Yesterday, when the mutton was shared, you were in charge. Today, on the battlefield, I am in charge. It is a cold line, not shouted, not emotional, just final. And Hua Yuan had almost no time to respond. Yang Zhen snapped the reins. The horses lunged forward. The chariot surged across the battlefield, fast. But it wasn't moving toward Song's formation. It wasn't moving into a planned approach. It accelerated straight toward the Zheng army. Imagine what Hua Yuan felt in that instant. He was standing on a platform of wood and leather, pulled by powerful animals, bouncing over rough ground, wind and dust in his face, the enemy line growing larger every second. He was the commander, but he was not controlling the direction. The man controlling the horses was no longer obeying him. The Zheng forces saw a Song command chariot charging directly at them. They surrounded it quickly. A command chariot was a prize. Capture the commander, and the enemy's center breaks. Hua Yuan was seized. The moment Song's troops realized their leader had been taken, panic spread. Orders became confused. Formation collapsed. The army was routed. A battle was lost because the most important chariot on the field had been driven into the enemy by its own charioteer. The historian of the Zhuo rarely wrote with open emotion, but here he did. He condemned Yang Zhen with fierce language, essentially saying he was not human because he took a private grudge and turned it into national disaster. And it's easy to agree. But the deeper warning of this story is not only about Yang Zhen, it is also about Hua Yuan. Hua Yuan prepared for the enemy, but he neglected the human reality inside his own chariot. He performed ritual for the army, but failed in a simple act of recognition for the man beside him. He understood the mechanics of war, but underestimated the power of resentment in a critical position. In chariot warfare, the system looked orderly. Ranks, rules, roles. But the truth was brutal. A battle depended on 3 men standing together, and if one of them decided to break the script, the entire structure could collapse. That is why this episode has survived for more than 2,000 years. Not because it is grand, not because it is glorious, but because it is small and terrifyingly plausible. One forgotten share of meat, one wounded pride, one man with his hands on the reins, and an army, an entire state, paid the price. The dust of that battlefield has long settled, but the lesson remains sharp. In any system, the smallest neglected role can hold the greatest leverage. And sometimes, history is changed not by strategy, but by a single person deciding quietly, "Today, I am in charge."